My name is Todd. A little bit about myself. I want to just give you a couple of minutes on my background. So currently, I am the co-founder and CEO of AdHoc. Our offices are actually on 10th Avenue and 17th Street. What we do is we built an algorithm to help people advertise across Facebook and Google. Before that, I was on the accelerated growth team at Google. That's within the AdWords team at Google, and basically our job was to help specifically startups grow with AdWords. During my time at Google, some of the companies I worked with were FanDuel, Hintwater, ClassPass, all New York-based companies, and it was our job at Google to help them understand how to use Google Analytics and Google AdWords to scale their business. A little bit about my journey to where we're at today, just so you can get the full idea. So left Google in 2015. I actually started Google in Ann Arbor. After graduating school in 2013, Google offered me a job in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or in California. But my whole family was here, so I decided I would go to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Very soon realized I wanted to go out to California, better weather, more startups, bigger office. So went out to California, was there for a year, then left, like I said, in 2015 to join Techstars. We actually joined the Techstars Accelerator based in Boulder, which is their headquarters. For those of you that don't know Techstars, it's a startup accelerator. If you've ever seen Silicon Valley, the TV show on HBO, it's sort of similar, I guess. Not as crazy, though. Not as crazy, but it was fun. And after Techstars, moved to New York, obviously, like I said, to start AdHoc. To date, we've raised $4.6 million in 2 different funding rounds. Throughout this presentation, I'm happy to answer questions. At the end, I'm happy to answer questions. But one thing that's unique about us, we joined Techstars with 2 people, no product, no traction, no revenue, and no engineers. So we were probably the earliest company ever to join. I'm sure someone will disagree with me, but we didn't even have engineers to build a product. So I've gotten a lot of questions about how do you as business people start a company, especially a tech company, and get into Techstars. Happy to talk about that later. But against all odds, I'm standing right here. And to date, we have 31 full-time employees. So here are some of the things I'm going to go over. I wanted to use this as a guide. However, there's a lot of things that we learned and some things that we personally experimented with, which I'm going to try to go through. I tried giving real-life examples with our real analytics and experiments we actually ran to help us grow. And then I'll come up with some other strategies that we've seen some of our customers grow in terms of getting new users. So first, we're going to talk about manufacturing demand. Okay, so manufacturing demand is vital. Like most people, they want to go create a company. You're probably broke. You probably don't really know where the company's going to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You just know that you're really passionate about something, and that something is going to turn into something bigger at some point. And that's really where we were from day one. So 3 areas of focus here, which I'm going to go into. The first one is a landing page. So where are we driving people to? When we started AdHoc, we actually had a landing page we created on Squarespace, drag and drop website builder, and we had a little sign-up form. And we actually got into Techstars by saying, look how many people have signed up for our product, and our product was an Excel document. No technology, just a simple Excel document, which I'll get into. The next thing I'm going to talk about is how you increase engagement and get users before you even have a product. And then lastly, I'll talk about how you feed that engine, or feed that beast, as we like to say. So the first thing, and probably the most basic thing that people overlook, is just your landing page, right? You put up a landing page about your product, you think it looks pretty good, you put it up and say, I'm going to start driving traffic to it. The issue is validating, why did you choose the background color? Why did you choose the button color? Why did you say it like this instead of you could have said it like that? And there's all these different types of experiments that you can run, but you don't know where to start, you don't know what to look at, or you don't even know what to experiment with. So I want to go into why landing pages are important. They're very easy to get going. They're hard to master. So I'm going to give you a real-life example here of why a landing page can be massively important. This was our first landing page. We built this in right when we left Google. You can see there's a green background color. It doesn't look the prettiest at the time. I thought it looked pretty good, though. We chose the red button No idea why, just it looked good on the page. It kind of looks like Christmas. There was really no rhyme or reason for anything here. Nothing was experimented with. So what we did is we went online and looked for software that could help us do this. So some of the softwares that we used, the first one was Optimizely. Really good tool. If you are going to build a landing page, allows you to A/B test anything on your site. If you want to test a red, green, blue color and a button and a orange background, it'll just do those permutations for you and show them to customers based on a certain percentage that you choose, and then we'll tell you the results. So you don't have to, yep.
How long does it take feedback to get to you?
It depends on how many customers you have coming to your site, right? Do you have 100,000 people hitting your site every day, or do you have 5 people hitting your site every day? So you don't want to make a decision on just like 20 people coming to your site, and you saw that these 5 people with the red button clicked on it more. So I'd recommend getting a statistically significant amount of traffic, but in terms of time, it really depends. The feedback is live, so it'll tell you people with the blue background stayed on the site for 45 seconds, but with the red background stayed on the site for 20 seconds. Or this button was clicked 20 times when it was blue, but only 10 times when it was red. So it'll give you that data in real time, but you got to decide when it's statistically significant for you or not. Okay, so the next tool that we used was Hotjar. Hotjar allows you basically to watch people on your site. It'll allow you to see where people put their mouse. So it'll have kind of a heat map for your mouse. It'll have a heat map based on where people spend the most time. That'll just allow you to know where to focus. So if people are scrolling down to the bottom of your page, focus a lot there. If people are only looking on top, focus a lot on top. So used Hotjar. Lastly, we use SumoMe. SumoMe allows you to embed forms on your site. So if you've ever been on a website and a pop-up comes up and it's like, subscribe to my blog or download my newsletter, that's SumoMe. So these are the 3 tools along with Google Analytics that we use to make some tests and some experiments. And here are some of the experiments we did. So the first thing we tested was button color. We wanted to see if we just quickly changed button color, would we see a difference in traffic? You can see we saw a difference in terms of conversion rates. The next thing we did was we changed the picture of the app, which wasn't even an app. It was a screenshot of a mock-up that we built. So we changed that a couple of times around. We changed the background color on the website. We changed the call to action from sign up to learn more to get a free consultation. We tried that a couple of different times. And then we just switched the messaging on the site. And we saw a bunch. If I had more screen real estate, I would show you more of these, but we had some dips as well in terms of things that completely didn't work. And then we came to this. So this was our new website. Again, we didn't have a product. We had a nice website, but we had a product that looked, a website that looked really good. And why this was important was we saw our landing page conversion rate with the same traffic we were getting before, the same organic traffic, the same paid traffic, nothing changed in the traffic. The conversion rate went from 3.69% to 5.37%. Now, when this happened, I wasn't that excited by it. I actually thought it didn't really matter. It was 1-2 percentage points. Like, that's not going to mean a lot. But then we started doing the math. So just to give you guys a little perspective here, and these are pretty real numbers for us today. So 25,000 unique visitors a month. Let's say that we have a 3.69% conversion rate, which gives us about 9,200 leads. That would have happened if we still had the old website up. With the new website, we have a 5.37% conversion rate. That gives us about 13,000, a little over 13,000 leads. Again, without doing anything, just changing the website up. That gives us a net difference of 4,200 leads. Now, let's assume that 1% of those leads, and this is a real number for us, about 1% of those leads turn into actual paid customers. That's about 42 paid customers per. And our average price point is about $250 a month. So you're talking about $10,500 in monthly recurring revenue in excess that we got from just changing our website up. We spent too much time focusing on how can we change the ads, how can we write more content, how can we talk to more people. That's all great, but if your website isn't up to par and you haven't optimized it, there's a whole nother room for opportunity. And as you can see here, if you're increasing your revenue, recurring revenue by $10,000 a month, that compounds very, very quickly. So that's one experiment we ran. To put this into even a more real perspective, over the last 13 months, we've grown from $0 in revenue to now we're doing about $230,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue. And a lot of that was due to changing up landing pages, testing, A/B testing a couple of different landing pages. And even today, we're still testing landing pages to try to get that number up even more. Yeah.
Did you stay on Squarespace through that whole time?
We didn't. After initially we started on Squarespace because it was just easy to get set up. But after that, we started actually getting it designed and actually built. But for like, if you're just starting out, using Squarespace is like the easy, or Wix or Weebly or any of those is the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, there's no restriction on compatibility. That means that OptimizeMe, Hotjar, and SumoMe, they'll work with any website.
Yeah, so they
don't
have.
care about Java or
No.
ASP.NET or anything like that.
So the good thing about like Wix and Weebly and Squarespace is that they all have marketplaces, like really easy plug and play type marketplaces, and that's what makes them so valuable as a product. It actually is harder once you custom make it because then you need to custom integrate all of these individual things. But any of those website builders, you can integrate with these products or similar products with like a click of a button and no code at all.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you get your traffic from?
Yeah. So
The different sources.
I'm going to go into that right now. So I'll go into that right in the next couple of slides here. So that's kind of how we initially got our landing page up and running. That was kind of the basics. Then this was right around the time where we started reading about the Harry's case study. Some of you guys may have heard about it, but Harry's launched and within 1 week had 100,000 people sign up for their product. And we wanted to figure out how they did that. There are similar products to this. If you've heard of the New York-based company called X.AI, they've done something very similar. And what they did was they built a wait list. So they built this artificial demand for a product that never existed. They set up, you have to be in a certain group or you have to be in the top X%, and you'll be able to get the product early. Again, they didn't have a product. We don't have a product. We thought it would work. So we tried to take the Harry's approach to say, we're getting all these people to our site. We have a high conversion rate. How can we allow them to refer other people to our product so that we don't have to use Facebook ads or content or other types of things to get people in the door? So we actually went right after it without getting, basically in the course of 5 months, we had, and this is actually a little bit wrong, we had 147 qualified leads through the door. That was probably close to 5,000 or 10,000 actual people sign up through just referrals. When we looked back, qualified meant they were spending. So looking back, maybe it wasn't the most qualified group of people that were signing up for us, but at the time we had about 10,000 people sign up, and that was all through a viral waitlist. The way the waitlist worked was you signed up, you got a position, and you got a group. You could tweet it up to 5 times. If you tweeted it and someone used it, you'd move up a group. If you were in group 1, you would just move up a position 1 to 50. And this little gamification really, really worked. That was part of what we used before we applied to Techstars to try to boost our numbers a bit, and it worked really well. 2 of the other stats we saw were the open rate and the check position rate were very high. So the open rate was, after you signed up, we sent you an email to say, hey, you're on the wait list. If you want to go up on the wait list, do these 3 things. 65% of people opened that, and out of those 65%, 75% of the people came back a day later or X amount of time later and checked their position. That showed that they actually cared. So this helped us grow our user base very, very significantly at the beginning. During that time, I don't know if there was software or we just didn't find the software, but it really wasn't an easy software to integrate. Now, and this is an example of, it's not that clear, but this is an example of someone that was in group 1 and they've referred 3 people, and this was kind of the email that we sent them. Now there is software that helps you do this, which you can integrate into your product, and you don't have to build out this like custom referral system, which we did here. Looking back, I wish we just used some sort of software rather than trying to build this whole thing ourselves. So some of the other stuff that we tested during this was a lot of messaging. We really wanted to do a couple things. Number 1, incentivize people to share. Why are they sharing this, right? What do they get out of sharing this? So we wanted to make sure in all of our emails they understood you'll go up on the wait list. We had stickers. We offered them stickers. wanted to incentivize them in any way to tweet it or share it or post on their Facebook page, and we tried to make that really, really clear. The other thing is we wanted to make the app feel very exclusive. So the more exclusive we could make it, we said we're onboarding customers slowly. We weren't onboarding any customers, actually, but we said we were onboarding customers very slowly. We were taking a couple people off the top of the list at a time, and that exclusivity factor made people want it more and more to fight to get to the top of the wait list. The other thing that we really, there was a lot about messaging, right? We wanted to not just sell the product and say, hey, you signed up, like, great, thank you. We wanted to continue to provide updates to these customers. You have a bunch of people, 10,000 people on a list, that's going to go stale very quickly. So periodically, we'd have emails out to them that says, hey, don't forget, if you share this 3 times, you can go up on the list. Or, hey, you're number 5, don't forget, you can go be number 4. But one thing that we learned through this whole process was getting a list of customers is great. They forget about you very quickly. So if you are going to do something like this, make sure you can engage with them, send them content, give them updates, tell them something. If they don't hear from you, they'll completely forget that they signed up for it. So here are the softwares that I found now that I hear people use. I think the biggest one people use is Ambassador. These can be used as waitlist stuff or like referral programs. So if you currently have a product today and you just want people to refer, these work as well. And I would say using these, although it costs a little bit of money, is worth it rather than trying to build this custom logic. It was a little ridiculous that we did that in the first place, quite honestly. So once you have a landing page, you can generate a little bit of traffic with a kind of a referral system. The next 2 things that are important is, well, how do we continue to feed this beast? How do we continue to drive traffic to the website so we can test all of our A/B tests? How do we drive people to the website so they sign up and we can do some referrals? The 2 biggest things that we did were content marketing and paid advertising. I'm going to go into a hack that we did with Google AdWords, which you still can do today, but we paid very little in Google advertising and got a lot out of it. All of these platforms, Google, Bing, Facebook, Twitter, all offer like sign up with $25 and get $75 free. We opened up like 100 emails consistently. We had an intern opening up new emails and new AdWords accounts or Facebook accounts all the time. So we spent a little bit of money, but we were getting $75 free of every $100 we spent. And that was a way that we were able to afford to do some paid traffic, which I'll get into in a second. So now I want to talk about content. We write a lot of content. If you go to our blog at our website, tryadhoc.com, you'll see we write content. We write a piece of content probably once or twice a week. It's one of those things that when you write it and you publish it, you probably won't see that much traction. But if you do the right steps, 6 or 7 or 8 months later, it'll have really good organic results. It'll get picked up in other blogs, or it'll get picked up in newsletters. And that's really when it comes in handy. You're not going to write something and tomorrow 1 million people are going to read it. It's just not really how it works. So the title of this slide is why most businesses suck at content marketing, and that's usually the reason why. People think you're going to post something and all of a sudden you're going to go viral, have 500,000 views on YouTube, and you're going to be famous overnight. That just generally isn't the case. It does happen once in a while, but not all the time. But on our team, we look at content in 3 ways. We look at it as own content, earned content, and kind of the new wave of experimental content. And I'll go into what each of these mean, and we've tried each of these, so I'll try to give an example of each of them. So own content. So own content is basically content that you host on your own blog. So content that is exclusive to you. You're not writing it somewhere else. You're not doing a guest post anywhere. It's on your blog. The big thing about writing is what should I write? What should I write about? What we did is we used tools like SpyFu is one of them. So SpyFu allows you to see kind of where you show up organically, and if I do want to show up organically, which keywords are good to show up for in my space, and then we wrote content about those keywords. Other tools that we tried to utilize for this were BuzzSumo. Like I said at the beginning, BuzzSumo is we use it as a pop-up where we said, hey, you're reading our content, don't forget to subscribe to our blog, or don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then the other thing we used was the AdWords keyword tool. That just tells us how many monthly searches each keyword had. So we saw that there were a lot of searches for an AdWords ebook. We saw that in SpyFu. We saw that in the AdWords keyword tool. So we actually built an AdWords ebook because of that, because we thought there was a big opportunity there. In terms of writing content on your own blog, SEO is obviously very important. I probably get asked once a day, how could I increase my SEO? And the honest answer is it's a big black box, and there's some things that you can do, but like for me to magically get you number one is quite difficult. But there are some good tools. Most blogs are hosted on WordPress. A really good WordPress plugin for SEO is a tool called Yoast. We've been using that for over a year, and it's been working pretty well for us. And probably the biggest thing for our own content was how are we going to get people to read it? And the thing we talk about in the office all the time is ego trapping. So what we'll do is we'll write a post about, recently wrote a post about the 5 best PPC people to follow, or the 5 best marketers to follow on Twitter. And what we'll do is we'll write about these 5 people, we'll talk about how smart they are, we'll talk about how great they are, and then we'll send them an email. We'll find their email, we'll send them an email, or we'll tweet at them and say, hey, you made our list of the top 5 people, you're number 1, congrats, you're awesome. And that pads their ego a little bit, they're so excited. Everyone, you'd be surprised, people don't worry about how small you are or how big you think they are. They love knowing that they are on a list or that they're important. And we're all about padding that ego. Getting one of them to retweet it, getting one of them to email it out to their friends is what we do often. Another thing we'll do is like in our long form pieces of content, we'll quote someone and we'll then email that person and be like, hey, we really love this quote you had. Is it okay if we quote you? Like, you're an expert in this space. And now that person will generally share the article once we tweet it out or put it on Facebook or something. So we're big advocates of ego trapping. You can do that in a lot of different ways, but build your network on top of someone else's network by making them feel really good about themselves. So here's the ebook I talked about. So we saw a ton of traffic, a ton of searches for an AdWords ebook, and when we searched for AdWords ebooks, there really weren't many good ebooks, so we decided to build our own. This was part of the ebook. This was actually the glossary. We split them out. And what we did with our content was we started gating it. So this, you could download it, but in order to download it, a BuzzSumo pop-up came up, and you had to give us your email. So we took our basic top 5 pieces of content, and gated them all, and wanted to see if we made people give us their email, would they give us their email? And our email list shot through the roof by doing stuff like this. So another good thing with content is there is definitely some content you want to give away for free. You can also gate the content. Our AdWords ebook wasn't gated, but we took the glossary out and gated that specifically. So if you write a big piece of content, you can use that in many ways, whether give it away for free, take a piece of it and gate it, whatever you like. But that's one example of what we've used. Another example, again, a little hard to see here, but writing content is really good for sales emails. When we're giving an email, we can in there say, hey, if you are interested, we know you're an e-commerce company, you should check out our e-commerce tips for Google Shopping. No worries if not, hope everything's well, right? So we can provide value to the people that you're emailing, whether that's sales or customer support. Again, what I'm trying to get at here is writing a piece of content can be used in many, many different ways, whether you take it out and write an ebook, whether you use it for sales, whether you just have it on your own blog, whether you use ego trapping. You can do it. Content is around forever, and you can cut it and slice it any way that you want. Another thing that we did was we started a newsletter. I don't think I've ever subscribed to a newsletter, but people do. We had the ability for customers to opt into our newsletter, and nobody was opting in. As you see here, I say we screwed up. That was because only 6% of that whole wait list, that massive wait list we had, only 6% of them subscribed to our blog, and we didn't know why. And the reason we wanted them to subscribe, so we can engage with them. Every week, send our top 5 articles that we thought they would enjoy, their top 10 articles. Yeah.
Where are you right now? At this stage, right? Where are you right now? Do you have a product? Do you have nothing yet, right?
We are getting ready to launch our product when we launched our first newsletter. Really not even a product yet.
Right?
Yeah, because we knew that if these people stayed on the wait list, people sign up for things all the time and forget. Right. So we needed a way to engage, an easy way to engage the newsletter, because if we can do a digital marketing newsletter, we don't have to produce any of the content. We can just take other people's content, go on search engine land, take the top 3 posts, go on TechCrunch, take the top 3 posts, and
just
curate
that.
Exactly. So it was little work, but it was a way for us to engage people. So we wanted to increase this test. So we tried to figure out what can we do. So this was actually our sign-up page here on the left. And what we did was we added this little, you can see it, this little checkbox. And there definitely were not 5,000 marketers getting our weekly roundup email, but we thought 5,000 made us seem really legitimate and having a ton of social proof. So we said, join over 5,000 marketers getting our digital marketing roundup. This probably is still on our site, actually. We do have over 5,000 people now. But at the time, it was just a way to give some social proof. And before this, the only way to do it was to go to a blog post, like really small somewhere, like add in your email. Once we added it to our actual sign-up page, our newsletter went through the roof. We never in a million years thought people would opt into actually doing this, but people did. And that one small experiment completely changed the activity of people on our wait list. So yeah, always be testing, whether it's with your content, your sign-up page, or your landing page. There's tons of things you can do. You can see here what the results were. So today, in just new blog subscribers, we have about 8,500. Our conversion rate was 6% when we ran this test. After we ran that test, the conversion rate was just under 50% of people actually opted in. That number is a massive difference. And not only that, these people are now engaging, so we're not losing them and they're not falling off. And that was just one test that really worked extremely well for us. Whether you want to do a newsletter or just product updates, or I know people that do vlogs, like video blogs, there's really any type of content you can do there, but definitely keep engaged with that newsletter. So the next thing is earned content. This is probably once we start having a product is when we start getting into earned content a little bit more. Earned content is basically content you put on other people's sites. So we wanted to get our name out there. We wanted to help our SEO. We wanted to basically build on top of other people's audiences. And that's how we look at earned content. Today, I write for Forbes, Search Engine Land, written for Time, and one other one. And you write a really compelling piece. In your profile, you link back to Ad Hoc, and maybe you link back to one of your blog posts that you wrote about before. All of a sudden, you have people coming from Forbes or Search Engine Land back to your site. You yourself are getting a little bit of notoriety in the space, which is good, gives you some validity in the space that you actually know what you're talking about. And SEO-wise, if you have a link on TechCrunch or Search Engine Land or Forbes, that works really, really well for your SEO. The other thing that we did was, you can see kind of my co-founder here, he would just tweet at people to try to get a guest post. So he tweeted at SEMrush. I think someone, I'm not even sure who that is, followed him, and he decided I'm going to tweet back, and I see you work at SEMrush. Let us get a guest post, please. And we started getting guest posts. So our first guest post was on Unbounce. The way we got this was they had a submission field, and I think 2 or 3 people on our team submitted this same post. We finally got one in. It was about how an ex-Google employee gets the most out of AdWords from an account manager. It was one of their highest rated posts for that month. You can see the type of virality. We had just under 600 tweets. This was in August 27, 2015. We still get leads from this today. If you type in the footer of this, Dan says he was one of the founders of the accelerated growth team at Google because he was there with me. If you type in the accelerated growth team at Google, this is one of the first things to pop up. And that team has grown from 1 team to like 20 or 30 teams nationwide. And customers are typing that in to look for, what does this team mean at Google that's trying to talk to me? And all of a sudden we come up number 1. Something we never expected, that in Dan's little profile, it mentioned accelerated growth, but now we get leads from this post all the time. And this was 2 years ago. That's the great thing about content. It's evergreen. It's always going to be there. You can reuse it. We can chop this up and put it into a downloadable, or we can still get leads from it today. You can see here that they also shared it on their social. So that helped us get more social followers and just continue to push our content. So you can see here and there, SEMrush posted our content with them. We got to post it as well. And if you look, Accelerated Growth Team Google, first thing up there. Again, something we didn't necessarily plan for, but knew that attaching ourselves to these bigger companies would help us in terms of SEO and leads down the road. last thing I'll say before I go into kind of some new content is there are tons of publications in your industry. They want people to write guest posts, right? Like we have a blog and we love when people reach out to us because we don't have to then write it. You're producing content for us. It's helpful. If we have to throw you a link back to your site, that's fine. So just do some research to figure out which journals are important to you. They all want content to be written. You just have to frame yourself in a way that you're an expert, you have an interesting piece that you can write for them, and it should work out in both favors. So the last piece of content is just new wave content. We've tried a lot of this, some being successful and some not. But this is more like the podcasting, the Facebook Live, the YouTube live streams, Snapchat. Where we've seen success is two ways. Number one, podcasts. We did a lot of podcasts over the past year. I think it worked because we ego trap people. We would email someone really high up at a company. We'd say, we love your company, we love what you do. Would you want to come on our podcast and talk about how you grew your company to 200 people? Or how you sold your first company? Again, we massaged people's egos, and people love talking about themselves, and they don't need to know how many people listen to your podcast, I guess unless they ask. But we reached out to people and had 10 or 20 really high-profile people on our podcast. Those people then shared the podcast that they talked about how cool they were, and we're then sitting on top of all of their following. So that worked out well for us. We still have the podcast on iTunes, and we still get people download it and sign up from listening to it without more work today. The other thing that we've done is Facebook Live or YouTube Live. In our industry in particular, people have questions, so we hold like an hour office hours, and we just turn it on, and if someone comes on to ask questions, we'll be there. The good thing about that is it's all recorded, so if it's a really engaging questions and answers, you can download it and use that as gated content, or you can use that in advertisement, or really however you want. And there's a whole bunch of things like this, whether you look at Reddit or other types of content. There's a whole bunch of new things now that you can try. This is just some of the stuff that we tried that was off the beaten path. We distributed a lot of this on websites like Growth Hackers, Reddit, Quora, and LinkedIn. Those were probably our big wins. I would say Reddit, we still today get a ton of traffic from. All of these communities hate when people just like say, hey, read my post, right? That's spammy, and generally you get downvoted, or people don't tend to read it, or you get a bad reaction. So what we do on all these sites are like forum sites, is if someone has a question, we will write a piece of content, or we'll have a piece of content that has that answer, and we'll instead write like a paragraph or two about the answer and say, hey, if you really want to learn more, here's a little link. So try to provide value, not just read my piece, this is interesting. So we try to answer questions with our content rather than post our content and have people ask us questions. So next I'm going to go into some paid advertising, which I'm very passionate about, and I think most people lose their money. But the last thing I'll say about content is like, it is evergreen. You're going to write it today, and it's probably going to be miserable. You're going to sit there and be like, no one's reading this. Why am I writing it? It will help you out in the long run. You just have to get it in front of the right people, number one, and put in the time up front. Like I said, that unbounce post today, 2 years later, gets us a ridiculous amount of leads, and that was written 2 years ago. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is how to hack AdWords without wasting money. This is something I've seen for the last couple of years, and I think everyone here, no matter how big or small your business is, you can make AdWords or Facebook ads work for you. It's just a matter of efficiency and a matter of actually knowing the platform. So I'm going to go into some things on how to use AdWords here. It is pretty complicated of a platform, so if you have questions, please feel free to ask. So the first thing is Google gives away free money. Like I said at the beginning, if you spend $25 on a new account, they'll give you 100. I think it went down to 75 now. We opened up like 100 AdWords accounts and 100 emails so that we could save that money and just continue to do that. We had an intern, a free intern, do that. So that worked out really well for us. Bing offers the same thing. Facebook offers the same thing. So if you're thinking about getting started, make sure you utilize something like this type of program.
Are they okay with it?
Yeah, I mean, they want new customers to sign up.
Same customer 100 times?
Yeah, they're not that okay with that, but they
Catch you, will they do anything?
no. There's nothing really. Listen, them giving you $75, the amount of times they do it, it actually gets people to sign up and be a customer. They've done some things like you'd have to create a new email every time, and there's not everyone here is willing to create a new email and create 100 Gmails. And another hard part about it, honestly, was when you create a Gmail, you need a phone number, and only one phone number can be attached to like 5 Gmails, so we had to get some of our friends' phone numbers, and they put some things on it, but they don't really care. AdWords is free to them, right? They don't pay for it. I wouldn't tell them you're doing it, but you're not going to get in trouble from them.
I mean, but won't they notice it when you try using $100 from this account and $100 from that account?
No.
You pay for a bill?
But if you're a customer, you could go from this agency to that agency to that agency and be in 20 different accounts in a matter of a month. So they don't care. I'll take that back. They probably care, but they're not going to do anything about it for, $25. So the way I look at AdWords is very similar to a beer funnel. The reason for that for startups is if you look at the typical funnel, it just goes like top to bottom, and that's just not the case. I can tell you most of our customers come to our website, leave our website, come to our website, leave our website, and then sign up. They don't just come to our website and sign up, which is why at Ad Hoc we talk about the beer funnel rather than the straight funnel. So what I'm going to go through here is like how you make people aware on top. You can do that with Gmail ads and display ads, which are really interesting. Then once people leave, how do you bring them back? So 1% of people will sign up, but how do you bring the people back that left? So I'll talk about some remarketing techniques. And then how do you seal the deal? So once they come back, how do you then get them to fully sign up? So the first thing I just want to quickly go through is display. This is top of the funnel. This is getting people to your website as cheap as possible. Google Display is basically a network of 2 million websites. It reaches about 90% of the internet. The way it works is Google has this product called AdSense. You can be a website from a soccer blog to a cooking blog all the way to CNN, and they all use this product called AdSense. And what they do is they have AdSense on their website. Google says, we're going to show ads on your site. We're going to traffic the ads to your site, but we'll give you a % of the revenue. So for these companies, it works out well. And for the advertisers, we can now show our ads on all these other websites that Google has their code on. Display ads are usually image-based. So if you've seen image ads on the side of a website or in between text, that's generally 90% of the time, let's say, from Google. These clicks are less expensive than Google search clicks. Reason being, you're not on this website saying, show me an ad about blenders or show me an ad about golf clubs. You're just there, and for some reason, they think you're interested in it. So these clicks are less expensive. I'm going to go into how it works next and how you can use it, but some things to keep in mind that I see people mess up on all the time when they are creating a display campaign. So if you have a display campaign or you have run one before and it didn't work, this is probably why. The first one, demographic bid adjustments. Most people don't know that you can increase or decrease your budget or increase or decrease how much you want to bid based on the gender, age, and income level of the people you want to target. Most people just target everyone because the setting is hidden very far within Google. But make sure if you are running a display campaign to use those demographic bid adjustments. The other thing is if you are showing your ads on mobile devices, that includes apps. So if you've ever been on, I don't know, Candy Crush or one of those apps and a little ad pops up either on the bottom and you click it by mistake, that advertiser is getting charged for that. You probably know that you don't mean to click on those, and you probably aren't actually interested in the middle of your game buying a blender. So if you don't want to be that person in those ads, the only way to get rid of mobile apps is to exclude the website AdSense for mobileapps.com. That's like the only way to get off mobile apps. There's no easier way to do it than that. And then Google has a functionality where you can get on search and display campaigns at the same time. What I would do is only be on a search campaign or only be on a display campaign. Don't be on them both. You can have both campaigns running, but make them separate. Those are the 3 things that I see people mess up on all the time when running a display campaign. So this is how a display campaign works. So if you were brand new to this, this is how you would set it up. So you would select a display campaign within Google, and it would ask you how you want to target customers. A little confusing, so if it doesn't make sense, please feel free to ask. So the first way is interests. So you can target people based on their interests. So if you're, let's say you are a sporting goods store, you want to target people interested in sports, or people interested in golf, or people interested in luxury goods. Interest targeting is based on people. In-market targeting is also based on people, but this is Google saying they're in market to buy this product. I quite honestly don't know how Google knows that they're in market to buy this product, but they've obviously searched other websites, or there's some signal to Google that these people are in market to actually buy today. Now, topics, keywords, and placements are all about websites. So instead of targeting based on people, these next three you're targeting based on websites. So topics is if I want to target the topic of sports, or I want to target the topic of cooking, that will show me on websites that have to do with cooking or websites that have to do with sports. If you do interests, let's say I want to do interests for people interested in sports, they could be on any website. Interest targeting, doesn't matter what website they're on, you're trying to target the person. Topic targeting is about the website, not necessarily the person. The next one is keywords. So if you want to say, hey, I want to target these keywords on a display campaign, that would mean that those words have to show up on a website. You're not targeting the person, but as long as these keywords show up on the website, I don't care who the person is, I want to show my ads. And the last one is placements. That's you literally saying, I want to show up on these websites, and Google saying, OK, I'll do that. Now, these can all be layered on top of each other. So you can do all of these. You can say, I want to show up on a website of someone interested in sports on a sports website where the keyword golf shows up. You can layer these all on top of each other. But keep in mind, these are all and statements. So the more that you add, the smaller the audience, the more expensive that audience becomes. Now, they might be more valuable to you, but just know that the more of these you add, the smaller the audience, not the bigger the audience. No worries. So any questions on this? Cool. And one thing to know, I don't know how deep anyone's been on like a Google AdWords display campaign, but once you do this, so let's say I want to show up on a website that has to do with topic of sports. What Google will do after a couple of days is say, hey, here are the actual websites you showed up on. And it will actually list out the hundreds of websites your ad showed up on. What I've seen work really, really well in the past is you can use this report. It's called a placements report. And you can say, OK, these are the 5 websites in which people bought my product the most. Or these are the 5 websites in which I had the most signups where my ads were shown. You can then create a new campaign, the placements campaign, and say, hey, Google, only show my ads on these placements. So what I like to do is I like to use the interest, in-market, topic, and keyword campaigns as a way to find websites. Then once Google reports those websites back to me on what worked, you create a placements campaign by saying, hey, Google, these websites I want to show up on because you know that they actually work based on data, not just because you want to show up on a website because you like it. The last part, yeah, go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah. What if you just want to acquire customers? You want to give the product away free. So there really is no conversion or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a conversion on your site, right? Whether it's free, they're going to have to download something or put in their email or do something to get the product, right? Even if you just want to drive people to your blog and you don't have anything to download, you've got nothing to buy, you can still say, hey, if someone spends 30 seconds on my site, that's a conversion. So a conversion is just any event or action which is success to you. Most people's success isn't just a click to your website, right? It's some action that you want them to take on your site. Does that make sense? Yeah.
If you launch a placement campaign, would that be less expensive than launch, say, the full altogether?
Placement campaigns are the most expensive because an interest campaign, let's say you want to target people with the interest of sports, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. Unless you're going to go add 100,000 placements to it, placements campaigns are going to be more expensive just because the audience is smaller. Right? If you add 5 websites to a placements campaign and you say, hey, Google, only show on these 5 websites, there might only be 1,000 or 100,000 impressions a day. if you say, hey, Google, show it the interest of sports, there's probably 100 million impressions a day. So the competition isn't as strong with interest in a market as it is with placements. Does that make sense?
But the overall cost will be the same, or?
So the way AdWords works, right, is a cost per click. So you're charged per click, and it's an auction. So based on what someone else is willing to pay. So if there's less impressions, it's going to be more competitive. So what I would do, I would only do placements if you really, really know that these websites are worth so much to you that you really want to make sure you show on them. And if you do it, I would just add as many as you can, not like 2, because you're going to compete with, if you only want to show on CNN, you only want to show on the Wall Street Journal, you could imagine how many other people are also bidding on that you could do it, but it's going to be expensive. So with display campaigns, here are the different types of image ad sizes. We get this question a lot in terms of like, what sizes do I have to make my ads? So here are the different image ad sizes for Google. What I would recommend, I see a lot of people like try to make their own ads or use a Google ad builder. You can spend $5 and go on a website like Upwork or Fiverr or any of those other kind of like freelancer websites, and you can get someone to make you a really good image ads for like $5 or $10. If you're going to be spending money on advertising, especially image and display advertising, you might as well spend $5 or $10 up front to actually have good assets to use. It's no different than a good landing page. Not having good images, you could build the best AdWords account ever. It'll never work for you. So make sure you put a little bit of time into that. And yeah, I mean, that's your assets. So make sure you put some upfront work there. Now, probably my favorite thing we did as a very bootstrap startup were Gmail ads. This is probably my favorite thing with inside of Google today and one of the cheapest ways to get traffic to your website. And this is very new, so most people don't use it, which means there's not much competition, so it's cheap. So with Gmail ads, you can actually target, it's a great way to target competitors. So if you are a sports authority or you are a sporting store and you want to target all of your competitors, this is the best way to do it if you don't want to spend that much money. The way Gmail ads work is you can see the text ad up top. When you click on that text ad, it opens up an image ad. And the way it works is you would build a display campaign like I just talked about. You would actually use placements, but your placement would be mail.google.com. So you're telling Google, hey, I want an image ad on mail.google.com. You then layer a keyword on top of that. And I gave the example of diapers. So if you layer the keyword diapers on top of it, you're saying, hey, Google, I want to show my ad in Gmail to people that are using the word diapers inside of their actual email. Another good example for us is we target mail.google.com, and we look for people that are saying advertising or people are saying some of our competitors' names in their email, and then we actually show them an ad. Our competitors email customers all the time, and in their email they obviously say, hey, it's Joe from XYZ company, or it's Joe from WordStream, one of our competitors. Now we want to target that company, and we know WordStream is in the email, so we're going to target them that way. So you, with all your companies, can probably find competitors and target people with this. These clicks are usually like 20 cents. You won't find much cheaper clicks anywhere else on Google, and I would say if I came back and gave this talk next year, it'll be $1. So make sure you check this out. Might not be for you, but definitely a good opportunity to drive cheap traffic. So some of the things to know about Gmail ads before you get started. It is a display campaign. It is a placements campaign like I talked about before. Google shows you a metric called clicks. Clicks are obviously clicks to your website. But with Gmail ads, a little bit different. A click is actually clicking on this text right here and opening it up to that image. What you have to do is add in a new metric called clicks to website, which is only for Gmail campaigns. And what that will help you do is say, OK, well, how many people actually clicked from there to my website? That's just something you have to know when you're using Gmail ads. The other thing is this image. If you know any code or you know someone that can help you, you can actually make this image an HTML5 image, and you can embed a form into it. So instead of sending people from here to there to your website, you can actually embed an email form right into that image, and they can put their email or subscribe or buy a product right from there. You just have to know a little bit of code to actually do that. To go back to testing, there's a red button right there. I would test all different types of buttons and call to actions when you do this before you find the right one. We've tested probably over 100 different call to actions and button colors before we found the one that worked the best. And our conversion rate went from, I think it was 2.8% to close to 6% by making those changes. So make sure you're testing as much as possible. The next thing I'll go into is remarketing. So if you've ever gone to Amazon, you've probably seen that product you clicked on follow you around the internet forever. It might be really annoying, but it actually works. That's called remarketing. So the way remarketing works is you click on a site, you don't do the action that they want you to do, whether that's buy a product or subscribe or read the blog post or spend 3 minutes on my free website. You only spend 2 minutes. They're then going to follow you around the internet with ads. This can be done on the display network. So on those 90% of the internet, it can also be done on YouTube. So if you've ever gone to a website and then gone to YouTube and been, oh, wow, I was just looking at this a couple days ago. They know that. I'm going to get into how it works and how to set one up, but one thing just to know when you're doing remarketing campaigns generally is you got to offer some different messaging or a different price point or something. If someone comes to your website, and I'll use our example, if someone comes to our website and sees our pricing and they hit our pricing page and they leave, we know that something about our pricing didn't resonate with them. So what we do is we build a remarketing campaign and offer those people 10% off. There used to be a trick on Amazon, I don't think it still works, but maybe it does, where you would add products to your cart. It knows what products you added to your cart. They know how close you were to buying, and because you added to your cart, you're so close that if you leave, they'll then offer you like 10% off a couple of days later. I am sure other e-commerce companies that are less sophisticated still do that, but you can kind of slice and dice it any way you want. But don't just show them the same image that they saw before with the same value props, with the same pricing, because they weren't interested in it before. Give them something else to be interested in. So this is a good diagram of how it works. So if someone comes to your website, you drop what's called a cookie on them. That's just a piece of code that's on your website. If you have Google Analytics, that's pre-built in. They then leave your website. They then see your marketing ad all around the internet. Some things to know, though, before you get started is that you need at least 100 users to do this before you can remarket to them. So I can't come to your website, be the only one, and then you show me images like, hey, Todd, I know you run my website. That's why they have the 100 minimum. So if you set up a remarketing campaign, make sure you're getting traffic to your site before you just set it up. The other thing is this can be image ads or text ads. Generally, image ads work better, so I would stick with that. And then lastly, change the messaging, like I said. Change the messaging on your ads or take them to a new landing page. This is a really good time to test some of that. So another example is if someone comes to our website, our homepage, and leaves within 30 seconds, we will use a remarketing ad and send them to a different website that we've created. It's still under our domain, but it looks different, different value props. We'll say instead of save time using ad hoc, we'll say save money using ad hoc. Or we'll say, don't waste hours with your marketing manager, use ad hoc today. We'll try something different, not just on the ads, but also on the landing page. Now, the way this display remarketing works, it's a static image. So if I click on all the products on your e-commerce store, you can follow me with a static image of your brand or a static image of all of your products, but it's not necessarily that specific product that I clicked on. That's called dynamic remarketing. So Google, you can toggle on dynamic or not dynamic remarketing inside of AdWords. Dynamic remarketing is when you click on that specific product and then you see that specific product follow you around the internet. That was the Amazon example I gave before. That's what they do all the time, and it works really, really well. You need some things set up inside of AdWords to get that going, which I'm happy to talk about later if anyone has an actual e-commerce store. I just wanted you to understand the difference of remarketing and dynamic remarketing because they are very, very different. So towards the bottom of the funnel now is search. Again, we brought cheap traffic to the site with display. let's say 5% of the people converted. We then used remarketing to bring back the other 95% of people that didn't convert. Let's say another 5% people converted from that. How can we take that last 90%, real bottom of the funnel, to try to get them to convert? And that is with Google Search. Google Search is the most expensive way to advertise on Google. It is also the easiest way to lose your money if you don't know what you're doing. So if you're going to pay attention to anything on the AdWords side, this is probably it. And this is what most people think about when they think about advertising on Google. So on Google Search, there's generally ads on top of search and on the bottom of search. Last time, I think it could be up to 8 ads. So that could be 4 on top and 4 on the bottom, or 5 on top and 3 on the bottom, or 6 on top and 2 on the bottom. It changes based on each search, based on what Google, how they think the revenue is going to work out. When you create a search campaign, you can be on Google Search or Google Search Partners. So search partners are Google actually licenses its search results out to AOL or Ask or Yahoo. So make sure when you're setting it up, it's going to say, do you want to show on search? And do you want to show on search partners? Search partners is up to you. Just know that that's not actually Google, but it's the same idea, just on other websites that they give their results out to. Like I said, this has the highest conversion rates, but is the most expensive. So if you can get this right, it'll be the most successful. If you don't think you can get this right, you will just waste all of your money here. So the foundation of this is keywords, which I'm going to get to on the next slide. It's probably the most important thing I'll talk about with AdWords. But some things to keep in mind when you're making these types of campaigns. The first one is quality score. Google offers this thing called quality score. And all that is how relevant are your keywords to your ads, to your landing pages. They need to do that because Amazon would bid on every word that you could ever type into Google. They would bid on they would bid on the word right? They would bid on everything possible. Now they actually do sell basically everything possible, but it stops a big car dealer from bidding on people looking for shoes because they might think that people looking for shoes is cheap, and if they're looking for Nike shoes, well, they're affluent and I want them to go look at my cars. What will happen is that car dealer will have a 2 out of 10 quality score, whereas an actual shoe store will have a 10 out of 10 quality score. And Google knows that by crawling your website. So if you guys both bid $1, they're going to win because they have a higher quality score. And you'll probably have to bid $2 to get in that same spot, whereas they'd have to bid on $1. It is this magic number that is pretty hard to say, how do I go from a 7 to an 8 or an 8 to a 9 or a 9 to a 10? It's kind of a little bit of a black box. But if your ads are relevant to your keywords, which are relevant to your website, you'll get somewhere from a 6 to a 10, and that's fine. It's really trying to stop people from going from a 2 and sending people with Nike shoes to a car dealer. It's really what the point of it is. So this is how basically Google makes all of its money. This is how Google search ads work. And again, like I said, this is probably the most confusing for most people and the most important thing to know if you're ever going to advertise on Google. So there's 4 different types of keywords. There's broad, broad match modified, phrase, and exact. And for this example, I'm going to pretend I'm a bike shop. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting in words that if someone types this into Google, I'm saying I want my ads to show up. Very simple. Again, highly lucrative if you can figure out the right words. So the first one is broad. So if I'm a bike shop, a broad match keyword looks like that example keyword, just bike shop. You put it in there, nothing fancy, you just put in the word bike shop. The issue is you're going to show up for synonyms, you're going to show up for misspellings, you're going to show up for related searches. So you might show up to something like cycle store, but you might also and more likely show up for images of stolen bikes or bike store that closed down near me. This is a Google example, but I can tell you that if you use broad match keywords, you will show up for ridiculous variations of something that sort of might have to do with bikes or stores. So I wouldn't recommend using broad match because it will get very crazy inside of what you're actually showing up for. I can say that most of the campaigns we build are broad match modified. And that's probably the one, if I could say only just choose one, I would say do that one every single time. So look at the same keyword, bike shop. This uses plus signs. So if you use a plus sign in front of the word, you're saying that that word has to be there. So you'll show up for bike repair shop, you'll show up for good bike shop, you'll show up for bike shop near me, but you're saying, Google, I don't care what they put in between, I don't care what they put after, but bike and shop have to be there, and then I'm happy. The difference between that and phrase match is phrase match is quotes. So instead of plus signs, it's quotes. And what quotes mean is bike shop has to be right next to each other. So you'll show up for local bike shop, but you won't show up for bike repair shop because they're not next to each other. There's something in the middle of it. So broad match modified gives you a little bit more flexibility. Phrase match, you're saying it has to be this phrase, nothing in between, but yes to before and after. The last one is exact match. That's brackets. So you're saying it has to be just this search. So it has to be bike shop, nothing else. You just know that this is exactly how people type it in. You don't want any variation of it, and that's exactly how you want traffic to come to your site. Like I said, the biggest mistake people make is they do them all broad match. You will show up for the craziest searches. You can actually see what you're showing up for. There's a button on the keywords tab that says search terms, and it will show you what you're actually showing up for inside of Google. And if you do broad match, you'll be so confused on why you're showing up for these hundreds of other searches that you totally didn't mean to actually show up for. So if it were up to me, I would only use broad match modified. There are reasons to use phrase and exact. If you're interested, I'm happy to go into that, but I would stick with the broad match modified. Any questions on that? Cool. This is like a super complicated, it's a hard to understand concept, and most people will just use broad. Please, like, if you're going to create an AdWords account, please just use broad match modified. Put plus signs in front of each word. So the last thing that Google recently added to all of its ads were things called ad extensions. Ad extensions are cool because it makes your ad bigger. It's now part of their quality score algorithm. The more ad extensions you have, the higher quality score, and they're 100% free. The number one question I got when I was at Google was, how much do I have to pay for this extension or that extension? They're all free. They're just hidden. You have to know to add them. So I'll go through what each of them are. Probably the most used one is a call extension. This just adds a click to call button next to your ad. So if you want phone calls, you need to have a call extension. You cannot put your phone number in your ad. It'll get disapproved. You have to do it through adding a call extension. On mobile, it's a click to call button. On desktop, it'll show up in plain text. The cool thing about that is if someone calls you from that ad and doesn't actually click on it, they just see the phone number and call, you're not going to get charged. So you're getting free phone calls. We have a customer that only wants phone calls, and I would say they probably get 5 or 6 free phone calls a month by using the call extensions. The other thing is Google offers a free call forwarding number. This used to cost $1, and a lot of people still think it costs $1. It doesn't. So what it'll do is it'll change your number to a Google forwarding number, and it will give you a log of all of the calls you had from AdWords. So it'll say, this is the area code, this is when they started the call, this is when they ended the call, this is how long it lasted, and this is the keyword that they searched. Without that, you don't really know how many calls you're getting from AdWords specifically, from which keyword, and how long the calls lasted. They won't record it for you. Google isn't in that business, but there are softwares, probably the biggest one being CallRail, that'll give you for, I don't know, $20 a month, give you a phone number that you can track, and then it records all the calls. And you can go into CallRail and just check that phone number and listen to any of the calls if you want to know the quality of the call, not just how long it was. The next one is site links. So if you've ever seen an ad, it's got like 4 little links below it. Those are site links. It makes your ad, you can see how much bigger it makes your ad. So there's no reason to have it, not have it. Most people will put things like about us or contact us. I can tell you for us, we have an ad that says, digital advertising software. And below it, we have about us. And it'll be a description about we came from Google or our location. And if they're searching in New York, we put that up so they can see that our location is right in New York. It's other things, give people other ways to go places on your site. Site links make your ad bigger, really should be used. The other one is structured snippets. So you can show all the services you offer, or all the styles you offer, or all the courses you offer. And it's just another line of text that they allow you to have. You can see in this working? You can see right here, this is a call out a structured snippet extension, and these are site link extensions. So without this, your ad would be half the size, and all of a sudden your ad is double the size, takes up more real estate. You'll probably get more clicks and more quality clicks.
And they don't care how many snippets you add.
Nope. So the last two are location extensions and callout extensions. If you're a brick and mortar store, obviously you want location extensions. You do this by creating a Google My Business account and just linking the Google My Business account to AdWords. Your location will only show up if the customer was within, it's either 30 or 50 miles of your radius. So you don't have to worry about adding it and thinking that someone in California is then going to see your location and not be relevant. It'll only show when it's local. The last one is call out. So call out extensions are these things right here that have these little dots in between them. You generally will just say, highlight certain things like 24/7 support, or family owned and operated, or in business since 1958. And you can see this ad right here has call out extensions. It's got site link extensions. It's using something called the promotion extension. And if they didn't use this, it would only be this big. And all of a sudden, their ads are double the size. Again, these are free. They help you with your quality score. They make your ad bigger. All good things to help you kind of drive more traffic and acquire more customers. The last thing I'll talk about, and then I'll take some questions, because I know I went through this pretty quick, is Google Shopping. I don't know how many people here are thinking about creating an e-commerce store, but Google Shopping is, if you have an e-commerce store or you sell products online at all, Google Shopping is the #1 revenue generator for that, above text ads, above display ads. This is like by far the best. At a high level, kind of how it works is you create a feed, and your feed has a bunch of titles and descriptions. You then put that into something called a Google Merchant Center, and all a Google Merchant Center is it holds your feed. That's really all it does. If you do have an e-commerce website, Shopify, BigCommerce, and WooCommerce, the three big e-commerce platforms, actually have a plugin for this. So if you have an e-commerce store and you're on Shopify, you can go to the App Store and say, I want to download the Merchant Center app. Not only will it put your product, not only will it connect to Merchant Center, it'll create a feed for you. So it'll download all your product titles, all your product descriptions. It'll then put that into Merchant Center for you. Every time you update your Shopify website, it'll update your feed. So you don't have to worry about this product's out of stock. I updated my website. How do I update it in Google? Or I changed this price, or I changed this color. It'll automatically update for you. A lot easier than trying to do that yourself and maintain that. You'll then connect that to AdWords. And if you've ever typed in really anything that you can buy online, you've seen those shopping ads. They're like little images on top of your search. The good thing about that is the customer knows what your product looks like, how much it costs, before they actually clicked on it. Whereas the text ad, they have to click on it. They then have to go to your website. You already paid for that click. They then say, oh, this isn't actually what I was looking for. Or, oh, this is way too expensive. I didn't realize. Before the customer clicks, they know exactly what it looks like, exactly how much it costs, exactly the brand. So generally, you'll get more qualified traffic this way. If you're a service business, you can't use Google Shopping. There's a couple other limitations. I don't think alcohol you can do Google Shopping, but everything else you can. One interesting thing I saw recently, Vistaprint did something really interesting on Google Shopping I saw last week. Vistaprint has a service, which is custom mugs, right, or custom T-shirts, and they help you put your images together and do that. Well, that's not allowed on Google Shopping because you're not buying a product. You're buying, there's a service, and you have to go on there and sign up for the service, so you actually can't go on there. What they did was they actually started selling gift cards, and then you could buy the gift card and then use that gift card to then make then for the service. So then they started showing up for custom mugs and this stuff because they were selling a custom mug gift card, which was like quite ridiculous, but it works, and they still use it today. So there are some ways around it, but I can tell you, like, for us, software as a service, it's really hard for us to get on there. But some people can get through it. Did you have a question?
Can you use Google Shopping ads for subscription boxes?
You can't. a lot of customers that we have, like we have a sock subscription company. What they did instead was they just literally picked one of their favorite designs of socks and said, we're just going to start selling this one sock, not because we think necessarily customers are going to buy it. They might, but because then we can have Google Shopping ads. And then that gets people to my website, and then they'll actually do the subscription. But you cannot do subscriptions as of today on Google. But they will evolve to that. Subscriptions are becoming such a big business now that I'm sure in the next 6 months something will come out for that. So I would look for a little bit of a way around that if you can, but technically no. So I left some resources here. In all honesty, we try to write as much as possible in terms of resources. If you ever tweeted us at Ad Hoc, like we'll get back to you on a digital advertising question very quickly. The other thing I'll say is if you ever run an AdWords account and you want like professional help, you could always call Google. Many people don't know that Google has a number you can call for AdWords. That number is 1-866, the number 2, and then Google. So 1-866, the number 2, and then Google. And as long as you have an AdWords account, it'll ask you for the ID of the AdWords account. Now they will route you to someone based on your spend. So if you're spending a lot of money, you'll probably get someone a little bit more knowledgeable. If you're spending not as much money, you might not get someone as knowledgeable. But no matter what, they can help you with basic questions or troubleshooting or why is my ad not running or help me save money. You can always call that number. They won't advertise it to you, but I'm telling you now that you can call 1-866-2-Google, and they're happy to answer for you. So that's kind of everything. I'm happy to answer questions about literally anything, whether it's this or something else. But yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. So you have some strategies, paid advertise strategies on Google and everything. But are you using Facebook too? And
yeah. So I didn't talk about Facebook today, but we use Facebook a lot as well. I can just at a high level tell you what we've seen work well in Facebook. We actually spend most of our money on Facebook. Reason being is if you type in the word AdWords optimization software, that click is $30. So we're paying $30 every time someone clicks on that. Another example is if you on Google type in emergency flood insurance, that click is $200. That's going to cost that company $200 if you click on it, even if you're not interested. So there's just a lot of industries where like Google is way, way too expensive, and we see a lot of those industries move over to Facebook. Facebook does a couple of things really well. You can upload an email list. So if those 5,000 people subscribe to my email list and they didn't respond to any of my emails, what I usually do is I'll upload them to Facebook and just target them. As long as they use that same email with their Facebook sign up, you can do that. The other thing that they do really well is a lookalike audience. So you can upload emails and say, find me similar emails. And it will find people similar based on that. So those are kind of the 3 things we do with Facebook. But generally, most of our customers are spending money on Google unless it's just too expensive. They'll move over to Facebook. I mentioned a tool called SpyFu before. SpyFu will tell you how much your clicks will cost on Google. So if you were trying to decide, I have $100, where do I want to spend it? Go to SpyFu, see how much your keywords would cost. And if you think that's too expensive, I would switch over to Facebook.
thank you.
Yep. Yep.
If you're just starting out, what should be your basic first advertising campaign budget?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that question a lot too, and that's very hard because a lot depends on your margins. When you're just starting out, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. So if you think you're going to turn it on and probably got any sales, the answer is probably not. So whatever budget you decide, I would just put a buffer in there of like learning and experimenting and trying, because you're not going to turn it on from not knowing anything to all of a sudden getting a bunch of sales. I don't really have an answer for you, the best budget. It really depends on where you feel comfortable. Now, some things you can do is say, let's say I only have a $100 budget. You can say, all right, well, instead of having, what is that, $30, no, $10 or less than $10. Let's say you have a $300 budget. Instead of being $10 a day, you might say, well, don't show my ad on weekends. And all of a sudden, you can have a $15 a day budget. I don't know. What is do you have a business or a product yet?
Yes, we have a product. We're in the tech space area, and I'm trying to decide, should we charge a fee or should we try recouping as advertisers or providing ads displaying ads to customers?
Yeah. So for that type of example, what I would probably do is use display campaigns, right? Because it's a little bit cheaper. And what you can do on your site is either make a conversion, like someone filling out a questionnaire, like, are you more interested in this, or would you be more interested in it free as long as we can serve ads? But the issue I have with that is you're not getting any revenue back. So it's hard for me to say, well, your margin is 60%, and then the lifetime value of your customer is $300. There's no real mathematical formula I can give you for that. Just know that you're probably going to lose all your money for the first couple of weeks because you don't know what you're doing. So just buffer that into whatever budget.
So what would be a rough buffer?
I probably wouldn't, I probably wouldn't spend money on Google unless I was spending about $500 a month. I think anything less than that, if a click is $5, right, you're only getting 100 clicks, and then you have some with men, some with women, some with this location. You're not going to see any correlation statistically significant to then like take a next step. Generally, people with lower budgets, I would recommend going to Facebook just because it's a little bit cheaper. But if I had to come up with a number, I would say $500 would be the minimum I would start with Google with.
All right. Well, my budget is between $1,900 and $2,500 to start out with.
That's good.
Well, if it works.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
true.
it goes like, gee, I could have won a vacation.
Yeah. Listen, you can only start low and ramp up. Yeah, I would say before you get going, just make sure you have a good grasp on everything, because it is really easy to waste money.
Next question.
For Google search ads, is it worth it to bid on your own brand name, especially if you're already like, the top result?
Tough question. Yeah, so it really depends. What we see, it depends on how big your brand is. If you have a big brand, let's say you're not even that big. Let's just say you have a little bit of brand recognition. You're going to have your competitors bidding on you. So we have competitors bidding on our name all the time. So if you search ad hoc, you'll see like 3 of our competitors come up, and it will say like alternative to ad hoc, blah, 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 right? So in order to defend that, it makes sense to have your own brand ads. I brought up quality score before. You're going to get a 10 out of 10 quality score. They're going to get a 3 out of 10 quality score. For position 1, you're going to pay 10 cents a click, and they're going to pay $1 a click. So you're paying pennies on the dollar to play defense. So if you have to spend 10 cents a click to make sure that your competitors don't steal traffic from you, I would say do it. But if you're a small company, you search online, there's no ads for you, you're checking it out every so often, you don't need brand ads. On the counter argument, there's a lot of startups now where like they come up with your name, and your name is like spelled like really randomly. A lot of startups will be like .co or tryadhoc.com, and for a while if you put in ad hoc, you wouldn't find us, but if you put in try ad hoc, you'd find us. So in that case, our organic results weren't good enough that we wanted to have our own brand ads. But generally, I'd recommend if no one's bidding on you, you don't have to do it. But if you're big enough, people will be bidding on you. And we bid on competitors too, so I mean, we're part of the problem. Are there other questions?
Yeah. For earned content, do you have to have a certain number of followers? Do you have to have a certain number of, I guess, pieces of content to really leverage?
No, right? It's all about perceived value that they think they're going to get. I think no, there's not a certain amount that you have to do. Granted, the more you have, right, the better off you'll be. But we got that story in Unbounce with no followers. No one even knew who we were. But who else is going to write a piece about working with your account manager at Google other than an account manager at Google? So we had the background and the positioning to be able to do that. We were a domain expert, but no one knew who we were. So leverage that. You'd be surprised at how little research some people will do, and just based on your background, they're totally willing to let you write a piece. Do you have a question?
I just had a question about Techstars,
Sure.
and I just wanted to maybe hear a little bit more about your experience and what you felt like was the biggest thing that you got out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were in Techstars Boulder. We went in with nothing, and we came out with a full understanding of how to build a big business. We were the first people to admit that this is the first business we're building, and we wanted a strong network around us. So Techstars is about 3 months. You get surrounded with 10 other companies that are in roughly the same position as you. So if you think you're having a bad day, you can probably turn to your right and that other person's having a bad day. Or you can turn to your left and see someone went through that problem last week and can help you and say, hey, I went through a similar problem last week. Let me help you kind of figure that out. So the point of like the community is really great. The other companies that are building with you are like really good to rely on, because a startup, you're going to have like the best days, and the best days are awesome, and the worst days are like the worst days ever. And sometimes you're going to feel like the company's failing, and other days you're going to feel like you're going to IPO. So it's nice to have other people around you that like you can see them go through the same stuff. But outside of that, we brought in mentors like, you know, one of the executives at Twitter came in, one of the executives at Facebook. They all provide you with not just mentorship, but like resources and free credits. We had like $200,000 in Amazon AWS credits. We get credits with Facebook. There's a lot of perks like that as well. But I would say the biggest thing for me was at the end getting introduced to investors, right? So at the end, we have this big demo day. And pre-Techstars, we were able to get meetings with most investors. You worked at Google, you're trying to build a product for Google. Great, we'll talk to you. When we went in and said, we're Google, we've been through Techstars, and here's our pitch, all of a sudden we got a ton more social proof that Techstars invested in us. We were part of the Techstars program, and it opened up a ton more doors for us. And even today, we have a ton of partners and partnerships in the works with Techstars companies in the past. And all of a sudden, when they hear we're a Techstars company, it's a selective group, we all of a sudden are able to kind of have a conversation about that. You know, like an example is a company called SendGrid. SendGrid is a Techstars company. They were in Techstars like 3 or 4 years ago. We're working on a couple potential projects with them. They just announced an IPO last week, and now we would never be able to talk to a company that is public that easily, but now through Techstars we're able to get that. I'd say the last thing is you can find someone at Techstars that knows anybody. If you want to be introduced to literally anybody, you can find someone at Techstars that knows that person well and can email intro you to. So you give up 7% of your company to join Techstars, but it's like having a co-founder with unlimited connections to money and partnerships and resources. And in my opinion, that's a pretty good co-founder. So that was kind of my experience. Yeah. So I can leave my email or Twitter or whatever best way to communicate if you guys want it, and I'm happy to answer Techstars questions or customer acquisition questions or how to get a job at Google questions. However I can be helpful, I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much, Todd. This
Yeah.
is a great session.
That was good.